The V-2 rocket stands as one of history's most profound paradoxes, a testament to the darkest ambitions of the Third Reich, yet simultaneously a pivotal stepping stone toward humanity's grandest aspirations. Born from the crucible of total war, this weapon of destruction inadvertently unlocked the gates to space, forever altering the trajectory of scientific and technological advancement. Its story is woven with the threads of brilliant minds, visionaries and engineers whose ambitions reached both for the stars and for the battlefields of a world engulfed in conflict. Section 1. Dreams of Space and Military Mandate, 1927 to 1941. The nascent days of rocketry in Germany were characterized by a fervent, almost romantic pursuit of scientific exploration, a stark contrast to the grim military applications that would soon define its most famous creation. In the aftermath of World War I, Germany, stripped of its conventional military might by the Treaty of Versailles, became an unexpected cradle for rocket enthusiasts. Unable to develop traditional long-range artillery or air power, some military strategists began to look at rockets as a potential loophole, a new kind of weapon that fell outside the treaty's strictures. The year 1927 marked a significant milestone with the founding of the German Society for Space Travel, VfR Verein für Raumschifffahrt. This pioneering organization brought together a diverse group of dreamers, scientists, and engineers united by a singular, audacious goal: to conquer space. Among these enthusiasts was a young and exceptionally talented individual named Wernher von Braun, whose fascination with rocketry had been sparked by reading Hermann Oberth's seminal work, The Rocket into Interplanetary Space. Von Braun, still a student, joined the VFR and quickly became a central figure in its experimental endeavors. The early work of the VFR was largely an amateur affair, conducted with a passion that far outstripped their resources. In dimly lit, abandoned warehouses on the outskirts of Berlin, these pioneers carried out their first rudimentary experiments, laying the groundwork for what would become a revolution in propulsion technology. Their early rockets were often crude, prone to spectacular failures, but each setback provided invaluable lessons. As the 1930s dawned, the military's interest in these unconventional pursuits began to solidify. By 1932, the Weimar Republic's army, ever vigilant for new forms of weaponry to circumvent the Versailles Treaty, turned its attention to the VFR. Colonel Karl Becker, a forward-thinking artillery officer, dispatched Captain Walter Dornberger to assess the society's potential. Dornberger, himself a man of vision, quickly recognized the strategic implications of rocket technology. He saw beyond the VFR's garage-level experiments to the potential for a powerful, unprecedented weapon. Wernher von Braun, having been deeply influenced by Oberth's theoretical work, successfully defended his doctoral dissertation, which was based on extensive tests of liquid-fueled rocket engines. This academic achievement, coupled with his practical experience at the VFR, positioned him as a leading figure in the nascent field. It wasn't long before the military sought to absorb this talent and expertise into its own research programs. There were persistent rumors and interpretations among von Braun's contemporaries that he initially viewed the Army primarily as a sponsor for his ultimate cosmic ambitions. He was reportedly heard to say, "We accepted any support, from wherever it came, demons or angels, as long as our rockets were financed." This sentiment highlights the complex ethical landscape that these scientists navigated, caught between their scientific curiosity and the military's strategic demands. Their dreams of space travel were powerful, but the grim realities of funding and political patronage forced a pragmatic alignment with the military establishment. Walter Dornberger, who would become von Braun's superior and a key architect of the V-2 program, succinctly articulated their dual purpose. One day man will fly to other planets on a rocket of his own design. But first, we must make this a weapon for Germany. This statement encapsulates the profound dichotomy at the heart of the project. a technological marvel born from visions of exploration, yet immediately pressed into service for destruction. An early, yet little-known, testament to their progress came in the form of the Aggregate series of rockets. These were the first successful test rockets developed under military patronage. The A-1, A-2, and A-3 prototypes gradually refined the technology. The A-2, notably, with its engine fueled by ethanol and liquid oxygen, achieved a remarkable altitude of 3.5 kilometers in 1934. This successful flight served as irrefutable proof of the viability of liquid-fueled rocket technology, demonstrating that the fantastical ideas of space travel could indeed be grounded in practical engineering. It was a crucial early step, solidifying the military's commitment and paving the way for the development of even more ambitious and powerful rockets. Section 2. Peenemünde, Cradle of Monster and Hope, 1936 to 1942. With the initial successes of the Aggregate series and the military's growing commitment, the need for a dedicated, secure, and expansive research facility became paramount. The small, scattered workshops and test sites of the VFR were no longer sufficient for the scale of development envisioned. This led to the creation of a massive, top-secret research complex on the remote Baltic coast, Peenemünde. This site, isolated from prying eyes and civilian interference, was destined to become the crucible where grand dreams of space collided with the harsh realities of total war, ultimately giving birth to a technological marvel that would forever alter the course of human history. The construction of this colossal complex began in 1936. It was an ambitious undertaking, transforming a quiet, coastal stretch into a state-of-the-art facility equipped with test stands, assembly halls, workshops, and living quarters for thousands of engineers, scientists, and military personnel. Peenemünde became the nerve center for Germany's rocket program, a place where theoretical physics was translated into tangible hardware, and where the boundaries of engineering were pushed further than ever before. Here, under the leadership of Walter Dornberger and the technical brilliance of Wernher von Braun, the Aggregate series progressed through more complex designs, leading directly to the development of the A-4 rocket, which would later be infamously designated as the V-2. The culmination of years of intense research, development, and countless failures came on October 3, 1942. On this historic day, a prototype of the A-4 rocket was successfully launched from Peenemünde. This event marked a watershed moment, not just for Germany's wartime efforts, but for the entire world's technological future. The A-4 was, without exaggeration, a technical marvel of its time. Standing an imposing 14 meters in height, it was a testament to the ingenuity of its creators. Its powerful liquid-fueled engine generated an astonishing 25 tons of thrust, a prodigious amount of power for an era when jet engines were still in their infancy. Crucially, the rocket incorporated a sophisticated guidance system based on gyroscopes, a significant leap forward in precision and control for such a large and complex vehicle. This system allowed for a level of accuracy unprecedented in contemporary rocketry, although, as history would show, accuracy for a ballistic missile still meant a wide margin of error when targeting specific points. A lesser-known, yet fascinating, detail about the A-4's advanced capabilities was its use of an analog computing machine. This early form of a computer was integrated into the rocket's control system and was capable of performing up to 1,000 operations per second during flight. This progenitor of the onboard computer was essential for calculating the complex trajectories and adjustments needed to keep the rocket on course, representing a foundational step towards the sophisticated avionics that would later guide spacecraft. For the engineers at Peenemünde, the launch on October 3, 1942, was more than just a successful military test. It was, in their unofficial interpretation, the birthday of cosmonautics. Despite the rocket reaching an altitude of only 84.5 kilometers, a distance that falls short of what is now considered the official boundary of space, the Kármán line at 100 kilometers. It unequivocally proved the possibility of sustained, controlled suborbital flight. It demonstrated that a man-made object could not only breach the upper atmosphere but could also be guided with a degree of precision never before achieved. Wernher von Braun, immediately after the successful launch, famously declared, "We have proved that the rocket engine is suitable for space travel. We have invaded space and proved it." This quote vividly captures the dual nature of their achievement. A triumph of engineering aimed at warfare, yet perceived by its creators as a crucial step towards the stars. It highlighted their underlying ambition, an ambition that transcended the immediate military objectives. An anecdote, or perhaps a legend, circulating among the engineers further underscores their sense of triumph and shared vision. It was said that after that seminal launch, the engineers, in a covert celebration, poured cognac into the rocket's warhead section. They then reportedly drank the contents when the warhead was recovered at its impact site, marking their profound success with a clandestine toast, a moment of shared exultation amidst the grim realities of their work. Peenemünde, therefore, was not merely a place of weapon development. It was also, for a brief, shining moment, a place where the human dream of reaching beyond Earth found its most powerful technological expression. Section 3. The Weapon of Vengeance. V-2 in combat, 1944 to 1945. As the war intensified and Germany faced increasing pressure on all fronts, the A-4 rocket, now officially designated the V-2 Vergeltungswaffe 2, or Vengeance Weapon 2, transitioned from a revolutionary scientific marvel to a weapon of terror. Its deployment marked a new, terrifying phase of warfare, where death could literally descend from the heavens without warning. This section delves into the V-2's operational history, its true effectiveness, and the horrifying human cost borne by both its victims and those forced to produce it. The V-2 was finally unleashed in combat on September 8, 1944. The target was London, a city that had already endured years of bombing and the relentless attacks of the V-1 flying bomb. The first operational V-2 rocket fell on Staveley Road in Chiswick, West London, killing 3 people and injuring 17 others. Unlike the V-1, which could be heard approaching and often intercepted, the V-2 struck without any audible warning. Traveling at supersonic speeds, it descended silently from the stratosphere, the sound of its approach arriving only after the explosion, a terrifying characteristic that amplified its psychological impact. The production of these highly complex rockets was a dark chapter in the V-2's history. Facing immense demand and a severe labor shortage, the Nazi regime resorted to unspeakable brutality. Production was primarily centralized at the Mittelwerk, Central Works, a vast underground factory carved into the Kohnstein mountain near Nordhausen. This facility relied heavily on the forced labor of tens of thousands of prisoners from the Dora-Mittelbau concentration camp. These unfortunate souls, comprising political prisoners, POWs, and Jews, endured unimaginable conditions. Cramped, unsanitary, and brutalized by their SS overseers, they toiled relentlessly, often in freezing temperatures and suffocating dust. Tens of thousands perished from starvation, exhaustion, disease, and summary executions, making the Mittelwerk one of the war's most horrific sites of industrial-scale atrocity. The creation of the V-2 rocket, therefore, carries an indelible stain of immense human suffering. Amidst the fear and destruction, rumors inevitably spread. Among the Allies, a persistent, yet entirely false, rumor suggested that the V-2 could be detected by a distinctive clap it made as it broke the sound barrier. This was a desperate attempt to find some means of pre-warning, but it was physically impossible. The rocket descended faster than the speed of sound, making any auditory detection before impact utterly out of the question. The reality was far more terrifying. The The V-2 literally fell silently and supersonically, leaving no opportunity for defense or even a moment's preparation. From a purely military perspective, the V-2 was, paradoxically, a rather unsuccessful weapon. It was exorbitantly expensive to produce, consuming vast resources that could have been directed towards more conventional and effective weaponry. Its guidance system, while advanced for its time, was still not precise enough to target specific military installations effectively, often landing miles from its intended aim point. Furthermore, its conventional high-explosive warhead was relatively small for a rocket of its size and cost, delivering less destructive power than a squadron of bombers. Despite these tactical shortcomings, the V-2's psychological effect was immense and arguably its most significant impact. It was a true weapon of vengeance, delivered from an unseen enemy, striking without warning, and leaving widespread devastation and terror in its wake. The sheer unpredictability and the anonymous nature of the attack created a profound sense of helplessness and dread among the civilian populations of London and other targeted cities, such as Antwerp, which also suffered heavily from V-2 attacks. It was a potent instrument of psychological warfare designed to break morale. A little-known, yet crucial historical fact reveals the true extent of Nazi ambition with this technology. Even as the V-2 was being deployed, German engineers were already working on a terrifying modification, Project A9/A10. This was conceived as a two-stage rocket, a monumental leap in rocketry design for its time. The audacious goal of the A9/A10 was to strike targets as far away as New York City. This project represents nothing less than the first-ever conceptualization and attempt at developing an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM. Though never fully realized, the very idea underscored the radical and far-reaching visions of the German rocket team, demonstrating their understanding of the true global potential of their technology, even as their regime faced imminent collapse. The V-2, therefore, was not merely a weapon of its time, but a chilling precursor to the future of global warfare. Section 4. The Scramble for Spoils. Operation Paperclip and Soviet Acquisition, 1945. As the final, brutal days of World War II drew to a close in Europe, the focus of the Allied powers shifted from territorial conquest to an equally fierce, albeit clandestine, battle. The race to seize Germany's advanced scientific and technological assets. Among these, the V-2 rocket program stood preeminent. The struggle for blueprints, equipment, and, most crucially, the brilliant minds behind this revolutionary technology became a defining feature of the immediate post-war period, setting the stage for the coming Cold War and the space race. Throughout March to May 1945, as American and Soviet forces rapidly advanced into German territory, a frantic, urgent scramble ensued. Both Allied powers made it a top priority to capture key rocket research and production centers, particularly Peenemünde and the Mittelwerk underground factory. The goal was to secure as much of the invaluable equipment, prototypes, and documentation as possible, along with the German scientists and engineers themselves. This was not merely about understanding the V-2. It was about acquiring the foundation for future military and technological supremacy. The Americans proved particularly adept at this strategic appropriation, launching a highly secretive initiative known as Operation Paperclip. Under this operation, the United States successfully extracted approximately 100 of Germany's top rocket scientists, including the program's charismatic technical director, Wernher von Braun. Alongside these invaluable human assets, the Americans also secured an impressive haul of physical hardware, around 100 complete V-2 rockets, which were swiftly disassembled and transported across the Atlantic for study and eventual use in their own nascent rocket programs. This audacious transfer of both knowledge and physical assets laid the direct groundwork for America's future in rocketry. The Soviets were no less determined. While the Americans focused on capturing personnel and complete rockets, The Red Army also moved swiftly to secure what it could from the former German rocket facilities. A little-known, yet immensely significant, fact highlights the direct involvement of key figures in the Soviet program. Sergei Korolev, who would later become the chief designer of the Soviet space program and a legendary figure in his own right, was actively involved in this post-war intelligence gathering. Wearing the uniform of a colonel in the Red Army, Korolev personally interrogated German engineers found in Peenemünde and meticulously collected fragments and components of V-2 rockets left behind. His direct exposure to German rocket technology proved invaluable in jump-starting the Soviet Union's own efforts. Legends and rumors inevitably surrounded these intense efforts. One persistent legend claims that the Americans discovered critical V-2 blueprints hidden in a deserted mine shaft, ingeniously sealed within fuel barrels. While the exact details might be apocryphal, such stories reflect the desperate measures taken by both sides to secure this groundbreaking technology and the lengths to which the Germans went to conceal their secrets from the advancing Allied forces. As the war ended and the capture became inevitable, Wernher von Braun and his team made a deliberate decision to surrender to the Americans. Von Braun, upon his surrender, is famously quoted as saying, "We know that we have created a new means of warfare, and now the moral choice to which nation to entrust this weapon lies with you. We want the world not to fall into the wrong hands." This statement, while perhaps self-serving in hindsight, nonetheless articulates the immense power they had unleashed and their perceived role in shaping its future application. It also subtly underscored their desire to continue their work, ideally in an environment where their scientific ambitions could still be pursued. The challenges for the Soviets in reconstructing and understanding the V-2 technology were significant. An anecdote captures some of these difficulties and cultural differences in engineering approaches. It is said that when Soviet engineers attempted to reverse engineer and replicate the V-2, they were often struck by what they perceived as the irrationality of some German design choices. One Soviet engineer reportedly remarked, "The Germans are either geniuses or madmen. Sometimes it seems both simultaneously." This observation, whether entirely accurate or partly anecdotal, highlights the distinct engineering philosophies and the sheer novelty of the V-2's design, which even for other advanced nations required considerable effort to fully comprehend and replicate. The hunt for spoils thus marked not just the end of one era, but the violent birth of another, fueled by the very technology that had brought so much destruction. Section 5. The Legacy of the V-2. From London to the Moon, 1946 to 1969. The capture of German V-2 technology and its creators by both the United States and the Soviet Union in 1945 did not merely mark the end of a devastating chapter of warfare. It directly initiated a new era for humanity. The V-2, a weapon born of destruction and terror, became the undisputed bridge from the battlefield to the cosmos, propelling both superpowers into a fierce technological and ideological rivalry that would define much of the 20th century. The space race. Almost immediately after the war, the Americans began to leverage their acquired assets. In 1946, the United States commenced a series of launches of captured V-2 rockets from the White Sands Proving Ground in New Mexico. These initial launches were not for military purposes, but for scientific research. Equipped with various scientific instruments, these V-2s were used to study the upper atmosphere, cosmic rays, and perform early experiments in space biology. This crucial period of experimentation effectively transformed the V-2 from a weapon of war into a vital research tool, serving as a university for a new generation of American rocket scientists and engineers, many of whom worked directly alongside their German counterparts from Operation Paperclip. The direct lineage of the V-2 soon manifested in the development of entirely new rocket systems in both nations. In the United States, rockets like the Redstone and Atlas were direct or ideological descendants of the V-2, incorporating its design principles and lessons learned. Similarly, in the Soviet Union, Sergei Korolev and his team meticulously reverse-engineered and improved upon the V-2, leading to the development of the R-1, R-2, and ultimately the monumental R-7 rocket. All these early rockets, fundamental to the respective nations' space programs, traced their technological heritage directly back to the V-2. The global impact of this inherited technology became dramatically apparent on October 4, 1957. On this historic date, the Soviet Union successfully launched Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite, into orbit. The launch vehicle for Sputnik was the R-7 rocket, a direct descendant of the V-2, designed under the leadership of Korolev. This event sent shockwaves around the world, igniting the space race and demonstrating the immense potential of rocketry. Just over 3 years later, the Soviet Union again stunned the world. On April 12, 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, orbiting the Earth aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft. The rocket that carried him into orbit was once again the mighty R-7, further cementing the V-2's legacy as the progenitor of human spaceflight. These Soviet triumphs, built on the foundations of German technology, underscored the incredible speed at which rocketry had advanced in the post-war era. Not to be outdone, the United States, guided by the very architect of the V-2, Wernher von Braun, was also pursuing ambitious goals. His team, integrated into NASA, spearheaded the development of the colossal Saturn V rocket. This engineering marvel, a direct evolutionary successor to the principles established by the V-2, would achieve the ultimate goal of the early space age. On July 16, 1969, the Saturn V rocket launched the Apollo 11 mission towards the Moon, culminating in humanity's first lunar landing. The journey from the fear-inducing V-2 raining down on London to the awe-inspiring Saturn V lifting humanity to the Moon was completed in a mere quarter-century. A little-known but profoundly significant moment in this journey occurred in 1946 during one of the early V-2 launches from White Sands. A camera mounted on the V-2 captured the first-ever photograph of Earth from space, taken from an altitude of approximately 105 kilometers. This pioneering image, depicting our planet as seen from beyond the atmosphere, provided humanity with its first true glimpse of Earth as a cosmic body, a profound perspective shift that would influence generations. The V-2, therefore, transcended its original purpose to become a university for an entire generation of rocket scientists in both the USA and the USSR. Every subsequent development, from the intense nuclear arms race that demanded intercontinental ballistic missiles to the exhilarating space race for lunar landings and beyond, can be traced back to this single, pivotal German rocket project. It provided the fundamental knowledge, the engineering principles, and the initial cadre of experts necessary for all that followed. As one historian of aviation and astronautics aptly summarized this incredible trajectory, without the V-2 and without the forced alliance with its creators, neither the US nor the USSR would have entered space so quickly. The tragic irony of history is that the road to the stars was paved by the most sophisticated weapon of the darkest era. Conclusion: the V-2 rocket stands as a powerful testament to the double-edged sword of human ingenuity. Born from the crucible of the Second World War and unleashed as a terrifying instrument of destruction, its technology paradoxically forged a path into an entirely new era for humankind, the space age. From the horrific bombardments of London to the triumphant footsteps on the Moon, the journey of the V-2 encapsulates a profound historical irony that the darkest chapters of our past can, against all expectations, serve as a prologue to humanity's greatest achievements. The legacy of the V-2 compels us to reflect on the complex interplay between conflict and progress, destruction and creation, and how the pursuit of power can sometimes inadvertently unlock the doors to unforeseen and magnificent futures.